Hello, everyone. It is another Thursday again. Believe it or not, it is another Thursday. It is the second, is it the second or third Thursday in January? I think it's the second Thursday, but it is another Thursday again. And I am here with you. And tonight we are going to be in the coaches' corner. Of course, we're going to have two outstanding coaches telling us a little bit about their program, some of their challenges, and some of their success. And the story continues with track and field. So welcome each and everyone wherever you're coming from, whether you're coming from Europe, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, North America, South America. It doesn't matter where you're tuning in from, Africa. Welcome to another episode of HP Chat Track. And of course, I'm your girl HP, and we're going to be having fun tonight. Okay, so stay right there. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back. Thank you.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple: to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica. One people, one legacy.
Get up on, no, don't stop. Future bright, the vibes nice.
And we are back. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome each and everyone who is already on the live. I've seen some people, of course. I've seen a Jamaican Olympian, 1972 Olympian, Vonnie M. Welcome each and everyone. And if you want us to see your comments and read them, please join us on YouTube where we can see your comments and read them. David Maris, welcome. Daniel England, welcome. Two outstanding coaches of track and field doing their thing in their, they're doing their thing to add to the legacy of track and field. First of all, I want to welcome David Maris. David is from the UK and he's living in the United States. Of course, he's coaching at the middle school and high school level. Daniel England, an outstanding champs junior for Jamaica, who is also living in the United States, and he's also coaching and doing his thing. But I'm not going to talk about them too much. I'm going to allow them to talk about themselves. Gentlemen, welcome to HB Chat Track. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having me on board, HB. I'm doing well.
Awesome.
Just came back from practice, so a little bit kind
of awesome. I can just imagine. I mean, the season has already started for Jamaica and a lot of schools around the world, I'm sure. But before I'm going to ask each of you just to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. And before we do that, I want to welcome another of Jamaica's outstanding Olympian. Lilith Hodges is in the building also. She's here. But before we get to Daniel, David, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born. I know that I said that you're from the UK, but just tell us a little bit about you before we get into the meat of the matter.
Yeah, okay. So, I was born in the UK. I've sort of lived at various places throughout the world. I spent a couple of years as a child living in Perth in Western Australia. Then I went back to the UK before spending 5 years living in the Middle East in Dubai. Then I moved up to Boston, but Boston was too cold. I feel like I'm going to be preaching to the choir about cold weather and you guys not being a fan of it. It was cold up there. So we relocated. We moved down to Texas. Kind of track and field wise, coached a couple of years at a small school in the NC2A. And then, as you pointed out, HP, I'm doing a bit of coaching at the middle and high school level now as well. So, sort of in a very small nutshell, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. Daniel, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Daniel England, where you're from? Of course, most of us know where you're from, but just tell us a little bit about Daniel.
Well, Daniel England. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. I went to two schools, well, pretty much three schools, but I went to Russell Primary, then I went to Whitfield All Age School, then I ended up at Calabar, recruited by the great Herb McKinley. And I did a little bit of track and field while I was in high school. I was considered a phenom. Through my tenure during high school, I only lost one race within the last 4 years, I think it is. I went to college at Northern Arizona University on a track scholarship. I stayed there in Arizona for the last 31 years. During that 31 years, I went to USATF. I was a recruiter for USATF a little bit. I did a level two coaching certs, and I've been coaching in Arizona for the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years. I did club track and I did high school track, and it was one and the same. And now I'm located in Florida, South Florida, and now I'm doing track for the high school, which is Somerset High School in Permit Pines, and I've been doing this for the last 2 years.
Talk about giving back. You gentlemen have been around the sun a little bit, and I love that. But David, just to ask you a little bit, did you play sport in school?
Yeah, so I played. So growing up in the UK, I played soccer for a bit, which everybody growing up in the UK plays soccer, right? So I did do soccer. But by the time I got to probably about 11 or 12 years old, I sort of moved away from that, and I dabbled a little bit in basketball. But then by the time I was probably 14 years old, like it was like track and field was what I was interested in, like solely. So it's very much a club system in the UK as opposed to it being a school system. So I ran for a couple of clubs when I was in the UK, ran in college as well in the university system in the UK. And I still like to dabble in the odd old man's masters meet as well. So it's not, I've never really sort of like properly hung up the spikes. The spikes probably aren't moving as quickly as they once used to, and sort of like battling the old hamstring tear or whatnot. But yeah, like I've been sort of trying to sprint for the past nearly 30 years now. So yeah,
Any
still
success?
going.
Any success?
Not a lot. So no, I mean, I always described myself as somebody that had very mediocre talent, but I think sort of I had a year or two where I sort of made the most of that talent. And then at this stage, well, I say at this stage, for probably the past kind of 10, 15 years, really, it's just something that I've done out of enjoyment, very recreationally, but also I think it, for me now being in my 40s, it's a great way for me to stay in shape and just have some kind of direction in terms of in my own like personal fitness path. So, but yeah, like I would consider myself sporty, always been interested in sport, love doing it, even if I wasn't a world beater, even I wasn't like a phenom like Daniel. But we can but try, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Track and field is the real sport. I don't know about any other sport, but track and field is the real sport. But let me ask you, gentlemen, you both, played sport in your younger days and stuff, but you're now giving back where you are coaching. What was the motivation or the influence that led to your interest in coaching, specifically track and field? Daniel, you can go first.
Well, when I first started coaching, it was really a parent trying to get involved with their child recreation. So when I first started coaching, I took my young daughters. I have two daughters. Now they're 28, 24. But when they were 5, I took them to a soccer community practice, and I didn't like how they were or they were coached. I said I could do better than that, you know. So I started coaching soccer at you know, at a junior level, because I wanted to coach my kids and I wanted them to get the best coaching possible. So I started that, and I ended up coaching the city soccer league. So I would have like 3-4 sessions a day. Was coaching really my I think it's between 7 and 12 kids. And then after the soccer, I said, well, maybe I would try to do track, you know. But I was hesitant because I wasn't certified, or I didn't take any coaching classes for track. I would just go on basically knowledge, you know. And then one person said to me, well, are you certified, you know, in order to coach track? So I said, no. And the guy said, well, come back when you're certified. So I didn't even tell him who I was. I was just like, hey, I want to coach track, you know. So the city manager said, well, you know, get some paper documents. And that's when I went to USATF and got involved with them and level up my education in track and field. But that's how I got started, was just soccer, soccer recreation soccer.
A typical parent who think that they know it more than the coaches. What was your motivation, David?
Well, do you know what? It's probably like a similar kind of case in terms of somebody that thought they knew better. So, you know, by the time I got, I don't know, and, you know, I was very fortunate that in my final year of university, I got coached by the great Linford Christie. So the 92 Olympic 100-meter champion. And that was just that was nothing to do with my ability. That was just being in the right place at the right time. I befriended like people in that training group, and they were like, yeah, you can join in. So anyway, when I left university, it wasn't feasible to continue training with those guys. So I sort of went on like a little expedition, like searching for training information, trying to figure out what the best guys did. And, you know, it was kind of when I guess social media was very much in its infancy, and there was training forums still online. So I would just talk to anybody that I could to just try and figure out, you know, how the best guys in the world were training, how collegiate athletes in the US were training. And I was using that information. I was trying to apply that to myself. So that's kind of really sort of like how that started. In addition to that, like both my parents were teachers. So, you know, I probably had like a little bit of that, you know, kind of coach teaching sort of mentality, you know, like I was potentially sort of like destined to go into that kind of domain. And then, as I said, I was in the club system in the UK. And so one of the things that, you know, there's a coach who, unfortunately, he passed away last year, I think. But he suggested, this was probably back when I was 18. And so I was one of the older kids in the group that he was coaching at the time. And he said, well, why don't you get at the time it was the UK Athletics Level 1 coaching badge. And then that means that you can take the warm-ups, and then you get like a little bit of experience in terms of like managing groups and doing a bit of coaching. So I did that. And then additionally, whilst at university, I then did my level 2, so that I could coach some of the kids that went through the academy, because we had an excellent facility for the UK. I think at the time it was one of 2 or 3 universities that had an indoor track, and I think probably the only university with an indoor 200-meter track. So that facility would be used for like a youth academy. And so in order to work on that, then I did my level 2. So, you know, kind of like, it wasn't something that a decision that I necessarily like intentionally made. Like I was sort of drip fed into coaching a little bit. And then, like I said, I went searching for this information that I wanted to apply to myself. And then I don't really know what happened from there. Sort of like organically, it led me to, you know, it led me to coaching others.
Okay, so you weren't like Daniel, a parent like Daniel who thinks that he can do better, right?
No, because I know that if I tried taking my daughter to the track to watch sort of with another training group probably about 18 months ago, and and I know that I struggle with it. So I just like I'm not getting involved. So
Gentlemen, recruiting is very important to, and this is recruiting is important in all sport because you want to ensure that you have the best team in the game. How do you recruit? You're both at the junior level where you're in the high school system. How do you recruit within the school to, how do you sell the sport to your student, especially in America where football and basketball are the two number one sport? How do you sell track and field in that? Daniel, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. I'll be driving parks because I'm an outdoor person, so I usually be out there a lot. And sometimes at the track, I would see an athlete, and I would ask them, "Are you involved in club track or high school track?" If they look prominent or they're like kind of lost and like trying to, for example, I was at the park and I saw this mom teaching this young lady how to run, and obviously they didn't know what they were doing. So I went over to the mom and said, let me kind of help you and take it from there, And I helped the mom and I helped the student at the time, how to run. They were getting ready for track season, and it was her first time. And the mom was trying to do her best. She didn't know anything about track and field, so I went ahead and gave her my 2 cents. It so happened she was in middle school at the time, so it so happened that she said, "Hey, can I hire you to teach my daughter?" And I said, "Sure." I hired to teach her daughter. So she paid me to teach her daughter, and her daughter ended up to be like the number two in the whole middle school after 2 months training. Ever since she stayed with me through middle school, high school, she didn't come to my high school because of the district. So that's one of the challenges because of district. It's kind of hard to um, have someone come to your school that you're teaching. But what I do, I teach them outside their school, and that's how I kind of recruit them in a sense of that portion. The other portion is for football kids. I usually let them know kids that do football and track and field at the same time improve fast than a regular football kid or a regular track kid. So when you do multi sports, your talent not only increase, but your ability to do better in the sports also increase. So those are the ways that kind of influence the football kids. And then I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, yeah, I thought you
No,
were saying
I
something.
thought that you were finished. I was going to ask David, what is his recruiting strategy? How do you sell track and field, David, to in a system where, as I said before, football and basketball are like inevitable.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, the slight caveat to our situation is that I teach or I coach, sorry, in a British curriculum school. So it's a British curriculum private school in Houston. So we don't have football. So we don't have that to contend with. So
Oh,
the big sport for us would be soccer. Okay, so we've got a very kind of culturally and just a very diverse population into like kids from all like various different countries. Um, so now, I'm not teaching there anymore, but I was teaching. And then one of the things that you would do during physical education lessons is you might, that notice that somebody that they move quite well from, doing whatever the sport might be. It might even be something like volleyball, and you can see they're quite explosive in terms of how they jump up, or we're playing soccer and you can see them running down the wing or whatever it might be. And then, I mean, I would definitely leverage that to have a conversation, just say, hey, come out and practice and see how it goes. And then similar to what Daniel was saying about football, I think that, my bias within track and field and what I tend to coach is the sprints, right? And I think that there's very few sports, maybe chess, but there's very few sports where speed isn't helpful, right? So
David, chess is not a sport. Stop it.
Well, I feel like you've opened a can of worms there. There's going to be some upset. I'm looking for some upset in the comments after that. So, you know, and I leverage it from that perspective. And you know, I try not to make it that, you know, the track is like a sympathy sport that, oh, you're just coming out to get something that you can apply to another sport. But I also, you know, I make it clear that, hey, you know, if you can run 100 meters, or you can run 60 meters half a second or a second quicker, that's going to be very useful on the soccer field or on the basketball court. You know, again, for things like basketball and volleyball, like typically, if you're able to sprint faster, you're likely going to be a bit more explosive, and that's likely going to carry over into some of the jumps as well, which, you know, are helpful abilities within those sports. And as part of the sprint program that I do, there'll definitely be some plyometrics, some bounding, and some jumping as well, which kind of helps with that. So, I mean, I definitely try to sell the sport of track and field, but I also look into ways that it, you know, that it can complement different activities that those student athletes might already be involved in.
Track and field is very big. I would say track and field is very big in Europe. Do you think that we are marketing track and field enough in North America? And we're talking about Jamaica, the United States, Canada, who makes up North America. Do you think that we are promoting it enough?
I mean,
Well, it depends
I'll
on
let
your
Daniel
region.
take this.
Yeah, it depends on your region because, you know, especially back east versus west versus south, you could tell based upon the region, some kids are just definitely faster than some. Texas, Florida, you know, those kids are just, you know, the number one in the nation versus New York versus Virginia, you know, so it all depends on the region. At least for me, from my experience. However, marketing, it depends which level too, because I know USATF and these different organizations do promote track and field. We have a lot of websites. We have a lot of sites that you can go to and get that information. If you want to do club, you want to start a club, or even get involved with high school, middle school. So to me, it depends on the region when it comes to promotion. But I know there's information out there that if you want to get involved, you definitely available to you.
David, what are some of the traits? And we're not talking about, you know, your program, each of you program, how you run your program. What are some of the character traits that you look for when recruiting athletes for your team?
Yeah, I think that there's some people that are true to their word. So you're going to come down and you're not, and then you don't turn up, then I find that quite challenging. So when I was working at the, we had a situation. We'd be practicing January. We'd be at practice before 7 a.m. Just because of facility constraints. That was the window that we had to practice. So, you know, if we had athletes that didn't turn up to practice, then, you know, that was quite a big sort of, potentially that led to quite sort of like big disciplinary action, you know, missing meets and stuff like that. And likewise, I think timekeeping as well, that becomes an issue, because I think that in a sport, well, in any sport, just in life really, if you're late, then for me, that's saying that my time is more important than yours. So it's okay just for me to keep, you know, I don't care that you're waiting for me. You just need to wait. So I think it's just a bit sort of disrespectful. So I think the traits, reliability, good timekeeping, and also accountability. So, you know, if you make a mistake, then you own up to it. You're not always trying to pass the buck on to somebody else. And I think just sort of being able to listen, being eager, being keen, being receptive to coaching, showing me that you want to, you know, that you want to get better, and that you're willing to do whatever it might be that might help you get better. Now, obviously, you know, having a 13-year-old or 14-year-old kid that has all those traits, you know, that might be a lot to ask, but you can definitely search for some of them, and then, you know, hopefully start developing some of those other traits, whilst they're a part of your program.
Plus some athletes are teachable. You can teach them behavior. There are certain behaviors that can be taught.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that once they see, if they see, one of their teammates behaving in a certain way, and their behave in a positive way, so a certain positive way that allows them to improve and facilitates them getting better, then all of a sudden they're looking and think, oh, what's she doing? I want to get the results that she's getting. So, let me learn from that. And so I think that's sort of like how you kind of go about fostering like a positive culture where, you have everybody on the team wants to do well for each other, and you've got and they all bring out the best in each other, and they sort of like raise the level throughout the team.
Daniel, David just spoke about 13-year-olds and high expectations. Technical development, when it comes on to the development and techniques and drills, how easy or difficult is it for you to get your athletes to grasp, the technicalities of the sport?
Well, it definitely can be challenging. I don't think technical coaching is an easy feat, because usually, like I explained to the kids today, the student athletes today, if the attitude sucks, you're not gonna get anything done. If there's no effort, then it's not gonna be done correctly. And if there's no focus, then we're just wasting our time. So usually those are the three things I usually try to emphasize to get the drill done. Is if I see you have a bad attitude, I know I'm wasting my time with you. So usually the drills can be done. It can be done. It's just that athlete itself, you have those that really key into it and they come to you and ask questions. Those you can work with. But the ones that think they're overachievers and the ones that think they know it all, those ones can be difficult, because you're trying to let them know you're not that far ahead that you think you are, but they think they are, because sometimes they do a club track and someone told them they're fast enough or good enough to be in club. So therefore they feel like they come to high school, they don't have to really listen. And I'm saying, I'm here to make you better. That's the only reason why I'm here. I'm not here to do anything else. However, so it can be challenging at times, especially if they're not listening. But if you get someone that listens, I don't care about their talent, then the technical aspect of coaching can be done. It just, if they're not focused, then it's a waste of time.
David, how do you save those athletes from themselves?
So what, the ones that like the overachievers that Daniel was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think is the conversation that I've had with athletes in the past is that, look, unless you're Usain Bolt, there's always somebody out there that's quicker than you. And I think that, in sort of the demographic that I'm currently working in, is, like I say, it's a small private school. And, so what looks quick within our school, then you got, especially like Daniel was saying, that there's a lot of talent in Texas. And so, what looks quick in our school, outside of our school, I don't want to say it's nothing, because I think that's a very, that's a bit of a harsh way to say it, but it really, that they're not going to get noticed. And, one of the things that I used to coach in Dubai prior to moving over to the US. And when I was coaching there, it was the same kind of thing. I guess I call it like big fish, small pond syndrome. So, we had kids that, they'd be 17, 18 years, 2 seconds for the 400 meters. And that looks great there. And then, they're talking about how they want.
What time is that, David?
About 52 seconds for 400 meters.
What age?
17-year-old boys.
Wow.
And that looks good there. And then this is it. They're talking about how they want to go to University of Florida. And I was sort of trying, like, it's not,
17 and 18-year-olds in Jamaica running the 400 in what, Daniel? 47 seconds, 46 seconds.
Yeah.
In what?
In the 400 meters.
Class 1, class 2?
No, he's saying 17 and 18-year-olds, which would be class one in
Yeah,
Jamaica.
right.
They're running 52 seconds in the 400 meters. But when you put them up against a Jamaican 17, 18-year-old in high school, they are running like 40,
Uh,
47,
No,
47
no,
seconds.
40,
Yeah,
44,
you even have
Yeah.
18-year-olds in
Yeah.
Jamaica run
Well, I
45,
mean,
45.
44. Right.
Yeah.
Around
this is my
44.
point. So this is my point. So in terms of, we've got here a big fish in a small pond. So we've got Dubai, which is I mean, the amount of athletes or the amount of kids that, I mean, this is going back a few years. This was been 2017, 2018, but the amount of kids that were involved in track and field in Dubai was relatively small. So 52 seconds, you're going to be quicker than your average 17-year-old, but not quicker than your average 17-year-old that's doing track and field in a Texas high school, a Florida high school, a Jamaican high school. And so their perception of their talent gets warped. And so that this is my point, that you need, and also without shattering their dreams, without like getting them to the point that, they think, okay, well, I might as well give up. So it's a bit of a delicate balance to strike, because you're trying to make them realize that actually, there's people out there a lot quicker, but you're trying to do from still trying. But I think it's very important that they have sort of like a realistic perspective of their own talent level. So, it might be as simple as, I tell you what, why don't you go on the website and find the rankings for the under 20 athletes and see how you compare to that or whatnot, or look at from the World Under 18 Championships and see what people were running in the 400 meters there, just so that it gives them some kind of yardstick to how fast some people in their age are actually running. And I just think it's so, to kind of save those people from themselves is kind of giving them a dose of reality,
Yes.
of what is there outside the bubble that they're being sheltered within.
Yes. I've seen an interview with Coach Glenn Mills from Jamaica, the coach of Usain Bolt, and he said in an interview clip that sometimes he had to remind Usain that he was the coach. So I guess it doesn't matter what level they're at. Sometimes athletes, want to tell their coach what they want to do or how they think it should be done. So I'm sure that is a challenge. But before we go any further, let's just say hi and welcome to some people. Let's say welcome to Vani M, who is here. She's saying hello, HP and family. She's also saying if they don't have the want to attitude, they're wasting their time and the coach's time, which I do agree to. Lily Hodges is also here, Jamaican Olympian. She's saying hello, everyone. Arthur Dixon is here. He's saying hello. Carrie Ann Phillips is saying good night. Monica Lewis is saying good night, HP and guests. Happy New Year. Happy to be back. So thank you guys for being here. And as I said before, if you want us to read your comments, join us on YouTube. I cannot see the Instagram comments. We are live on Instagram, but unfortunately, I cannot see those comments. So join us, and I cannot see the Facebook comments also. So please join us on YouTube, and we will read your comments. And again, thank you for joining us. And of course, we're here with two track and field coaches. The track and field season has begun. It has started in Jamaica from January 4th, and of course, different parts of around the world. And we're here just to hear, the stories of some of the coaches who are conditioning athletes, how they do it, what they do and stuff. So to get back to the gentleman, I heard that sport is 80 plus mental. It is more mental than physical. The both of you are at the middle and high school level. How do you condition your athletes equally to be mentally ready and physically ready? Go ahead, Daniel. Then we go to David.
That's right. So on the physical side, we definitely your background. I usually let the student athletes know that your season begins with background training. That's what makes your season, not your season training. So if there's no background work, then consider your season a failure. With that said, I try to let them know, you have to come out here feeling that you belong. If you come out here and even though the person beside you is doing better than you still have to have the attitude that you belong here. And once you get that attitude that okay, I think I belong, then the workout itself, I'm not saying it's easy, but the workout itself is a little bit more breathable, for the athletes per se. But definitely, background work is where we start, and we pound that day in day out. Weights Tuesday Thursdays. We do hard Mondays, relax Tuesdays, mechanics on Tuesdays. We take Friday off. We come back Saturday, Sunday rest day. So those are the routine we kind of do for the high school and the middle school students.
David, how do you balance it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. So, and maybe I'm saying this because I wasn't the athlete that I wanted to be, but I mean, I think that there's certainly in sprints, right? You have to have some kind of genetic predisposition to be able to sprint fast, and you can't make up for that lack of physical talent just by trying hard. And I think that it's possible in sprinting, I think, to try too hard in terms of overtraining. So you're under recovered and you increase injury risk, etc.
So David, are you just to cut you a little bit? Are you saying that all the sprinters that we're seeing, the top sprinters, the Usain Bolt, the Shelley and the Linford Christie, the Donovan Bailey and Carl Lewis and so forth, they were born to sprint?
Yeah, I think that they've got some genetic predispositions to create that. Now, I'm not saying that they've just relied purely on their genes, but I think essentially to get yourself into the conversation of being an Olympic sprinter, you need to have these genes, and then you separate yourself depending upon your preparation and how you work. And that doesn't mean that the preparation is easy. So I'm not diminishing these athletes at all. But for example, right, so a rule of thumb might be is that as a fully grown man, whatever you can run without any training for 100 meters, you might be able to run a little, providing you're a fit and healthy young man, you might be able to run about a second quicker, with training, okay, with sprint specific training, okay. So therefore, if you take Usain Bolt, for example, how quick was he at 15 years old? He was very, very quick at 15 years old. And at that age, a lot of that, I would imagine, and I don't know, but I'm speculating, a lot of that is going to be as a result of a lot of talent, because he's not going to have had, though he was too young to have a huge training history prior to that. Now, I know that these athletes work very, very hard at their craft, so I'm not diminishing what they're saying. But I think you need to have that talent to get into the conversation of being an elite level sprinter. Now, to talk about what you were saying in terms of getting the balance with the mental and the psychological aspect.
Physical, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way that I would look at it is that the confidence that the athletes develop is from knowing that they have put in the work, that they have gone through the physical preparation. And I think that, that's only going to come with knowing that they have applied themselves properly to the physical preparation as well. So I think it's kind of like tapping into whatever you can tap into to excite them, to make sure that when they're performing a training session, when they're performing a run or performing an exercise, then they're doing it with a high level of intent. So one of the things that I quite like to do is I'll bring out some timing gates. I've got a free lap or a dasher system, and we'll do 30-meter flies, because just the fact that then they're doing a sprint and then they see what the number is associated to that performance, then that's competition. They want to make sure that their number is faster than their friend's number. So that inspires that intent. So whatever you can do to inspire that application of effort, and then I feel like you get that application of effort consistently, exactly like Daniel was saying, throughout the background training, and then I think that you've done that for a few months, And then you can probably be fairly confident that, hey, I've prepared for this. I've worked quite hard. I've worked hard through the background training. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to perform. I'm ready to race.
There are athletes, a lot of athletes suffers from anxiety, that kind of thing, and especially when they see their main rival. What are some of the things that you would tell your athletes when they are having these triggers, especially when they're going up, in high stake competition? What do you tell your athlete when they see their main rival and they come to you and say, Coach, I can't do this. I can't. How do you reassure that athlete that you are just as good or better?
Well, for me, I always let the student athletes know when you go on the track, introduce yourself to all your competitors. Go to them and introduce yourself, because not only for that day, but for down the road. Because usually you're within the same age group, so you're gonna see this person again, either next 2 months or the next couple of years. So that's one of the iceberg I use to shake that nervousness, is by introducing themselves to their competitors and say, "Hey, I'm Daniel England. I'm Daniel England." I mean, just get their name and then you move on and you go back to your lane. Another thing I usually let them know, you know, is that your best is your best. There's nothing else you can do other from your best. I don't care if you come last, long as it's your best, that's good enough for us as coaches. So it's not about position, it's about you doing your best as an athlete, meaning you did the work on Monday, because Monday usually the hard work, right? You did the work all week. So here we testing. Today's test day, right? Today's test day. So let's see what we do on the test, right? And if it's it's a A, it's a D, then we got more work. A, we still got work. If it's a D, then we got more work. So those are little nuggets I kind of drop before they go into the race. Not even for the race the day before, because race day I don't tell them anything on race day. I just let them do their own thing on race day. But the day before race day, I usually kind of explain to them that kind of attitude. And not only that, too, even the 400 meter, most athletes are scared of 400 meter. it's, it's a,
It's a long way.
it's a big race, right? It's a big,
yeah,
it's
to
a
end up back where you started, that's a whole lot of pain.
Right, pull up your socks. But I explained to them, I said, for example, on Monday, you run repeat 300s. Today, you only run 1-4. Which one easier? If I come to you on Monday and say I'm gonna give you 1-400 to run versus, repeat 300, which one would you take, right? So track meets, I usually let them know track meets is your easiest workout day you would ever have, because you're only running one race once, especially early part of the season. So I try to take the giant out of the whole thing and make it simpler as it is, because that's what it is. You're only running one time versus Monday you run this same distance over and over. So I try to keep it just as simple as that.
What's your strategy, David, in reassuring? Do you talk to your athletes on race day?
Yeah, so I would. I mean, I think that, and I think Daniel made an excellent point in terms of your best is your best. And then the other thing that I would add to that is, no matter who's in the other 7 lanes, that they can't affect your performance. So, whatever's going on around you, that can't impact your performance.
That's easier said than done, Coach.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. But whatever your best is, no, I agree with that. Okay, but I think whatever your best is, on a physical level, they can't bump you, they can't cut you up. It's not gonna, like, whatever your best is, you can do it whether they're there or not. And I think the other thing that I would say is, and I think that this is one of the things that Champs, I think it's why it's such a great initiative that you guys have in Jamaica, is that it exposes young athletes to that kind of high competition environment, so they get conditioned to it. And I think, to me, that's what training is, right? We're preparing for we're preparing for intense competition. And what better way to prepare for intense competition than having regular intense competition? So I think that almost becomes part of the training process, both on a physical and a psychological slash mental level. So I think that just becoming sort of like, I guess you might call it race hardened or whatever, just kind of being out there. And so it ends up being that it's, if it's something that if you end up in tough competitions week in, week out, then it becomes less of a big thing that you become used to. So, that might not help them in the first couple of races, when they're nervous. And, obviously you have the flip side where, the first couple of races traumatize them, and then you got to use a different strategy to kind of get them back into those races. But I think for the majority, it's like anything in life, right? The more you condition yourself to whatever the task is that you need to complete, the easier it becomes. Like, I mean, I'm sure that when you first hosted this show, it was.
Oh man, I was a nervous wreck.
Right. Okay. But I'm sure, like, now when you host it, it feels a lot more natural. Yeah. So I think it's the same kind of concept.
Yeah. You're right about that. The first time I did this show, I was a nervous wreck. Now I can do it with my eyes closed. But going back to champs that you mentioned, you're right. We have a good thing going in Jamaica. Daniel was a superstar at champs, and he can tell you about going through the tunnel, because we have like a warm-up track and then like a call room, and then the athletes have to go through this tunnel to go into the stadium to compete. And Daniel can tell you about the energy, the noise in that stadium when he's coming through that tunnel. And tell us a little bit about it, that Daniel, how you were able to remain focused with all the noise and the cheering and your name being called in the stands.
Well, for me, it was nerve wracking, just going through the tunnel, because you hear all this noise, you hear all this cheering, but you don't see anyone. But you enter in the stadium, there's 36,000, 32,000 people. So for me, the tunnel was the most nervous part of the whole thing. However, when I was running, I had tunnel vision. And so once I hit the track, honestly, I really don't hear anything. I really don't. It could be
How
my
were you
mom,
able to block out all that noise though?
because I'm focused on the race, because I was taught to run the race over and over in my head. you know
Visualization.
Visualization, exactly. So I'm here focusing. Okay, all right. I'm a bust out the first 160, right? I'm gonna work on my breathing. Hold a horse, hold a horse, hold a horse. Make sure you stay the momentum, and then 200, and I pick it back up. 110, boom, I hit it. So all those things are running in my head, running through my head. So really and truly, there is no noise for me. The only noise was, my points, my pinpoints. So those are the things I was focusing on. I really didn't hear any noises when I'm running.
Before you enter the stadium to run that race, what would Herb McKinley would have said to you before entering the stadium?
Just race strategy. And most time that's all we talk about. It's just race strategy. Just like, okay, make sure you hit your points. Make sure you come, because that's what we practice. Make sure we come at the 160. 14, 15. Make sure you hit the 200, 21, 22. Those are little points. So in my mind, I'm running. Honestly, I'm running scared because I want to not to disappoint my coach, right? Because I mean the athletes are there. No disrespect to the athletes, but my fear when I'm in the race is not to disappoint my coach. So that's why it's mostly my fear of running at the time. It wasn't my competitors. It was me saying, "Okay, coach, give me information. I got all the resources that I received. I got everything I needed, right? It's my time to execute." So most of the time when I'm running, to be honest with you, I'm running scared because I don't want to disappoint my coach.
Wow. David Daniel was recruited and coached by the legendary Herb McKinley, Olympic champion Mr. Herb McKinley. Have you ever heard about Herb McKinley, David?
Yeah, I have. I like to consider myself like a little bit of a student of the sport. So when I
Awesome.
remember when I was 10 years old, in fact, I was 9 years old, sorry, my grandfather, he gave me a VHS tape. So that's going to tell you how old I am. This was VHS. This is, but it was a history of like sprinting throughout all the Olympics, and so yeah, I mean, I learned about Herb McKinley from a pretty young age. I mean, I'm not an expert on him, but yeah, I'm definitely familiar with who he is.
Yeah. He was legendary. He have
Yeah, he was
given
a
a
great
lot
man.
to track and field, the Jamaican. He has done a lot as an athlete and also as a coach. And this story that Daniel is telling is all about Mr. Herb McKinley. But let me
Mhm.
ask you, David, have you ever been to Champs in Jamaica?
No, I'd love to. I've not.
No,
I've never been to
we need to
Jamaica.
take
I
you
need
there.
to. I need to get to Jamaica, so I should
Yeah,
come. Yeah,
you need to experience Champs. You
yeah,
experience Champs, you want to go every year.
yeah. I mean, I've seen clips like TVs, documentaries on YouTube and stuff, and I mean, it just look. I mean, there's nothing. Where I'm from in the UK, I mean, we have like the English schools championships, but I mean, it's not like I shouldn't even be comparing it. Like it's on a completely different scale. But I think I mean, as kind of you both spoke about there, that the fact, I think it's, if you're a teenager and you're competing in front of 30, 40,000 people, then it makes it so much less of a jump that, you go to the next level. You're on the Diamond League circuit. If you're professional, you're going to senior national championships, or, I don't want to say lucky enough, but if you're at that level where you're able to go to the Olympics, then I think it makes it's less of a jump up in terms of the atmosphere, because you've already been exposed to that however many times you've done champs. And I think that really does contribute to Jamaica's sprint success.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. That's where it starts. Before we go any further, next we're going to look at strengthening and conditioning. But before we go there, I just want to welcome Mars Track Club, which is out in Jamaica in St. Mary. Welcome, sir. Tamika is saying good night, everyone. Another Jamaican Olympian is here with us tonight, Etlin Tate, 1980s Olympian. Another Jamaican Olympian, Dorothy Scott Genius, the 1980s Olympians also. Marlene Green is saying good night, and of course, they're here hanging out with us. But, gentlemen, let us talk about strength and conditioning. How intense is your program as it relates to strengthening and conditioning? You're at the junior level, which is the middle school, which is primary school in Jamaica, and high school. How much do you explore strengthening and conditioning? How much emphasis do you put on it?
Well, I rely on 100% because I know come in season how important that is. So for example, the middle schools, um, here in Florida, there's only a couple of places with the hills. And that's one thing when I got on board, I asked, is there's a hill here? And they said, not really, because, Florida is flat, So I said, listen, we got to find some hill somewhere, man, because this is all I know, right? I can only teach them what I know. So they found this place called Vista View. It was a man-made hill. It was a dump. They call it a landfill, I should say, and they recreated it as a hill, just to have a hill. And so I take my middle school and my high school kids over there every weekend, every Saturday, and have them run the hill. I mean, to me, it was one of the best thing you can do when it comes to strength and conditioning. Of course, you have the weight room Tuesday, Thursdays, come Tuesday, Thursdays. But definitely, if we don't do hills, like I tell them, if you don't come to practice on the hills, just know that I'm not gonna put you in a race, because to me that is so important. Your strength is what get you through your season. And without that, I could go be a testimony to that. If I have a bad strength conditioning workout for that season, my season just mediocre. It's not really the best, and I know that from experience. So I very emphasize to the kids: if you miss the hills, just come Monday, you're gonna be touring up, and so forth. But definitely, I stress hill running for every athlete. It could be old, young, because it do help you along down the road. It really does. Of course, like I said, you have the weight training for the high schoolers, but the middle schoolers, I just keep them on the hill as much as I can.
David, biomechanics, that form, that super form that every sprinter need, is it important at a young, when I say a young, a middle school, early high school level, is it really important? Is it a part of your program that is important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the what's worth noting with sort of like technical changes is that the younger the athlete is, then the easier it is for them to make technical changes, just because they have more like neuroplasticity. So, like the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Then I think there's probably some truth to that. So, like one of the, I guess like an analogy would be if you take a 3 or 4 year old and try and teach them 3 or 4 different languages to speak, then they're probably going to pick it up quite quickly. But however, if you take me now in my 40s and try and teach me French, well, I just tell you right now, you don't want to hear me try and talk French. Okay, so I'll butcher the language. So
Agree,
I
agree.
think, so I think that the younger people are, the more receptive they are to learning. Now, my own personal frustration is, and I need to do better, is I need to be patient in terms of how long it does take for them to, to see those biomechanical changes. And then I think that, like I look at a couple of things. So for like posture is something that's very important to me, I think. So, sprinting and making sure that the head is stacked directly above the shoulders, on top of the hips, above the feet, etc. We're not bent forward or anything at the waist. And so everything that we do in the warm up, that's, I'm trying to drill that position. And I'm still sort of working on figuring out in terms of, how I can ensure that we can bridge from the warm-up drills, what's being done there, and it's actually being reflected when they sprint as well. I find that a bit of a challenge, but we work on that. All being said, right, I think it's important that young people are getting exposure to actually sprinting. So, or if they want to sprint, if that's their event. And we can shy away from sprinting because we're spending all this time doing technical stuff, and then they never actually sprint. And I think it's really important for them to have some exposure to that. And I think there's probably like some degree in terms of the
All right, it seems as if he's having a little problem there, guys. But
Say.
okay.
Your video. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm hearing you
Yeah.
now. Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry. So I was just saying that I think the fact that, they get exposed to sprinting and they try and go as fast as they can. And then to some extent, the body's going to figure out like the most, it's going to figure out a more optimal movement strategy for doing so. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't give them any input. But I think a combination of those things, making sure that we're working on postures, we're working on positions in slower movements, and they also have the exposure to sprinting. That tends to be how I approach it.
Before we go to our, the next question, I'm seeing a comment here in the comment section. I don't know if you gentlemen are seeing the comments, but Vonnie M, who is a 1972 Olympian for Jamaica, she says hills and stairs. And after how many years, she's saying, I still feel it today. She's a 1970s Olympian, and she's saying she can still remember the hills and the stairs. But peaking, I keep hearing this term, peaking athletes, peaking, when you peak and when you don't peak. How do you factor this into your program, Daniel? Peaking. How do you know when to peak your athletes? You know, how?
Yeah, yeah, I know the word peaking is floating around.
Is it a
For
thing?
me, I don't think it's a thing. I really don't think so. I mean, for me personally, right? It's all about development, right? You try to get the athlete ready for meets, right? My philosophy is usually if we have a meet, whatever you do within that 3 week for the meet, that's what you produce, right? For example, okay, when I was in high school, right, I run 48, right? Did I peak? No, I didn't peak, right? Because I run a 47, and then I run a 46. Then I come back and run a 49, and come back and run a 46. So, is that peaking? I don't know, but I run all those times in one season, you know? So for me, regarding peaking, you want to get the athlete ready for regionals. You want to get them ready for conference. You want to get them ready. So you're trying to get them ready for that meet. But for peaking, I really don't know because to me, if you run 10, okay, so if you run, I'm stick with the 400. So if I run 46, that means I can't run 45. Is that what you're saying? But I know for sure you want to get your athletes ready for that upcoming meet. It could be, like I say, it could be a regular regional meet, conference meet, conference finals. So you're trying to get them ready for those meets. Peaking because at the end of the day, we have late bloomers. We have athletes that during the season not doing anything, and then come the last two meets, they bust out like, dude, where this came from? I mean, where you have this? I'm like, coach, I don't know. They probably grow 1 feet within the last month, and next thing you know, they bust out like a bag of chips. So for me, I am not sure about peaking in a sense. I know you get your athletes ready to go on meet days, and hopefully you try to improve. Like I usually tell them, when season start, try to have a number. That's how I was taught. Pick a number. For me, my number in class, I think class 2 was 48 seconds. So pick a number and try to get to that number, right? And then we move on to the next number. So those are the different things I know of. But peaking, I don't know when do you peak. I don't. I just don't know.
Your thoughts, David, on peaking. You have a full season. I mean, in Jamaica, the track and field season for junior is January to if it is a world junior year, then they can go up to August. So we would have to, as they say in Jamaica, we say peak. There is the Gibson Relay that is in February. There is Champs that is in March. There is the Character Games that is in Easter, and they get a break. A matter of fact, there is the Pens Relay, and then they get a break. And if there's World Junior in July or August, so for us, it is a long season for our junior. But as it relates to your
Mhm.
program, I'm not sure how long your season is, but how do you keep your athletes on point for the entire season in order to get them to perform either better as they go along or to be consistent with their performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you know what, I really liked what Daniel said there, and I was glad that he answered the way he did because I thought I was going to have to come in and then say, oh well, I take a different approach. But I mean, so I think that my approach is, and I primarily coach short sprinters, so 100, 200. But I tend to keep very close to race pace throughout all the training that I do. So it's a very speed focused approach, right? So it's not. So we're never too far away from being competition ready because what we do in training is going to be very similar to what we do in competition in terms of the velocities that we hit. Now, that being said, like if I had an important competition coming up, then in an ideal world where we've had let's say, we've had an unbroken month where, we've been able to do everything we need to get ready. That week before the competition, I'll scale back quite significantly on the amount of training that we do, so that they're well rested and ready to go in there. And that was something that, perhaps I probably played around with a little bit more when I was coaching at the collegiate level. We would when we started practice in late September, October time, and we practiced right up until Thanksgiving, and then they'd have optional workouts they'd do out throughout the holiday period, and then we'd practice through. We'd start competition phase in early January, and then indoors would bleed right into outdoors until the end of April, early May, and then there were one or two key competitions. And what I would do is in the week leading up to those key competitions, because they've already had that big training background, then I'd pull the training load out and then that just means that they're fresher, they're feeling more rested. And I feel like it allows them to sort of, express the qualities that they've developed within their training. But I'm also conscious that, exactly like Daniel was saying, that, if we're saying that they're peaking this year, then what does that mean? That they can't get any better next year? And, I would never want to tell anybody that they can't exceed what they've done this season in subsequent seasons. So I think it's just a case of sort of it's not something that was particularly drastic, but I think on a, on the level of a weekly cycle, you might reduce what they're doing if you knew that A, they had a good background, and B, they had an important competition coming up that weekend.
Awesome. It is a term that we hear so often. Oh, an athlete will peak for this event or that event, and they go to another event and the performance is not the same because your coach wasn't peaking you for that event. So it is a language that we speak in Jamaica so many times. But injuries prevention and recovery is a big part of the sport of track and field. Based on your knowledge and your experience, how important is stuff like warm-ups, cool down, stretching, rehabilitation protocols and stuff? How important is that to your program?
Well, okay, you guys start. But okay, I take this one.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Right.
Yeah, I want to give my ideas as well. So I want to come. Daniel, definitely.
You want to go first, Coach?
I can, if you want me to, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I mean, so I think that, yes, warm up is important. I think that you need to, but I think it's something that can be overdone. But definitely, it's important to raise your body temperature. In terms of static stretching, again, that might be something that's overdone. Typically, that's something I would more include at the back end of a session, when, as part of the warm down, when the body temperature is already up, and then we can perhaps make some structural changes on the length of the muscle tissue. This is one of my gripes with recovery, is that I think that, I've had athletes in the past, and I don't know whether Daniel will have had a similar experience. I've had athletes in the past that will, they'll stay up till 2 a.m. playing Fortnite, and then they'll have had a hot pocket for dinner and won't have had any water. But then they think they're recovering by getting their massage gun out and then sitting in their Normatec recovery boots. And I would say that the biggest, I think that's backwards. I think the most important thing to do, the three big things in terms of making sure that you're recovering from an athlete perspective, is making sure that you're sleeping enough, making sure that you're eating right, and making sure that you're hydrating. And then I think from a coach perspective, it's to do with load management. So it's making sure that the training that you're giving them is appropriate. So you're giving them training that they are able to recover from. You have enough recovery between the workouts based upon what the training load is within the workouts that you're giving them. But I think things like jumping in an ice bath, getting in Normatec boots, using massage guns, I mean, that's the last fraction of a percent, and I don't think that's helping you if you're sleeping 2 hours per night and you're not eating a good, a good balanced diet with a good amount of protein and all that kind of stuff in it. My thoughts. Sorry, Daniel, I wanted to rant. I'll let you go now.
Go ahead, go ahead, Daniel.
Well, it's very important because my rule of thumb is prevention is the cure, right? So even though you have all these equipments out there to help you, the guns and the massage guns and all that stuff. For me, even with your warm up, the warm up to me is so important that if you're not sweating, then I can't give you a workout. I really can't. I just can't really touch you because to me, you telling me you're not ready, and that, not only that, even the warm ups, I separate the springers from the long distance. I do dynamics versus static stretches because sprinters have to be, you know, um, upbeat, heart rate, you have to be warmed up, you know. So I try to have a separate warm up for the sprinters and a separate warm up for the long distance runners because it's two different muscles. Um, but for me, to be honest with you, it's a good 30 minutes. Warm up for me is 30 minutes easily. And like I said, once they start sweating, then I know they're somewhat ready for the workout.
Gentlemen, do you have a lot of injuries in your program, your team? Do you see a lot of injuries, Achilles,
Well,
hamstring, whatever?
injury is part of sports. There's no way around it. Someone's going to get hurt. Even on a higher level or a lower level. But to me, it's prevention is the cure. You do things to prevent because usually, the injury occur because you're doing something that the body's not used to sometimes. Just by jumping over a hurdle, you could hurt yourself because you're not used to jumping over a hurdle. So for me, injury always gonna happen. It's part of the sports. It's the dark side of sports that we don't address fully. But to prevent that, to me, your warm up have to be so important than actually the workout itself. Because if you don't warm up good, then you could hurt yourself during your workout.
Amen to that. How do you sustain your program? And what I mean by that is, how do you get athletes to return and new athletes to join your program? Is it hard to get them to come back to training after a holiday or a break? David?
I think with this, I mean, again, I think it's important to make training fun. Okay, and that doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy, but it's, there's a coach up in Illinois who coached in high school, a guy called Tony Holler, and he talks about, this should be the best part of the athlete's day, and so I think you want to try and create that. You want to try and create that environment where, and I quite like to do it if I can. I try and do it through competition. So the fact that kids generally like competing against each other, they like that element of competition. And it can become challenging when you've got like varying degrees of levels of ability within your training group or within your program. But for example, today I had so he's year 12, which would be like an 11th grader. And I had a 8th grader working out together. So the eighth grade girl would run 200 meters, and then my 11th grade boy would run 250 meters. And then the idea being that, well, the girl needs to not let him pass her, and he has to make sure that he does pass her. And so you add like a competitive element, and then you try and make it fun. And I think that helps, kind of like you say, with the sustainability of it. And then, I mean, we sort of touched on getting new people coming out in terms of recruiting, but I think probably the best thing you can do to market a program within a school is like word of mouth. And if somebody hears their friend saying, "Hey, you should try this. This is good fun," then that's probably going to mean more than anything that I can say to somebody that might potentially come out and join practice.
My next question was going to be team dynamics, but I think you just touch on it. How do you build? I mean, these are children. They're at the early stage of the game, of the sport? How do you build a positive team culture, communication, leadership, turn them into little leaders on their team? What is your approach, Daniel? Is it important to your team?
Yeah, because you're creating leaders. You're creating captains. You're creating role models per se. For example, like our warm ups, right? We do a group warm up, right? Then we do group dynamics, static stretch, right? So so at the end part of the once the workout's finished at the end part, then we do a group stretching, and then one person would take it, and then they would count down one, two, cross the legs, and they would go down, and someone would do a countdown. One person. We usually give it to a senior to do the cool down stretches for the team. And once we're done, then we do a hoorah. So we'll pick another senior and say 1, 2, 3, Somerset after me. 1, 2, 3, and you say Somerset. And we do that every day, every practice. We do a group warm down, a group warm up, and then we do a hoorah at the end of each practice. We do a clap in. We go, and then everybody come, and then we just pick a senior and say, it could be whatever word they use, whatever inspiration word they want to use. It could be Somerset, it could be hard work, it could be teamwork, it could be, go get it, So that's what we use to build future leaders and future captains.
How do you build your team culture, David? You have a mascot or something?
No, no. Well, I think we do. I think we do. Like, I'm not that big into that kind of stuff. Like, in terms of like mascots, like I like to just kind of get on with the work. But I think that, like, going back to what Daniel said, I think that building leaders, building role models, and I think that like what we do in sport is sort of like representative of like life, right? So skills that we can develop in sport that are going to transfer to whatever path these people may go down. If they're not going to become a professional athlete, they can take some of the skills, some of like the resilience to business or whatever it might be. And I think that, within the track program, I think the benefits of like having leaders, like Daniel was saying, is that, if we go to a track meet, we might only be able to go with 2 coaches. And then, one coach might be officiating the discus while another coach is doing something. So having somebody that we can, having a couple of people that we can rely on to lead the younger kids through the warm up for their events, that's really helpful. So they're almost kind of playing the role of like assistant coach slash athlete at some of these meets. So I think it's really helpful on that level. But I also think, we're developing, we're trying to develop skills that are going to be helpful in life as they move forward as well. And I'm conscious I come across a little bit negative there about that mascot comment. I think like British people, we're quite cynical. So it's not, like since coming over here and seeing like all the mascots in the high schools, that's not something that we're used to in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of a cultural difference. But
a culture shock, right? Or difference?
It's absolutely a cultural shock, absolutely that. But I think we definitely try and build like a positive culture within the team. I like to laugh and joke with them, and so I like to build. And that's part of what I was saying before in terms of like having fun. If they know and they can have a laugh and joke with me, then that probably makes them. I would like to think at least. Then it makes it a more enjoyable experience, them coming to practice, rather than they've got to be yes sir, no sir, and they don't feel like they can crack a joke in front of me. So I think that kind of helps create sort of like a positive culture where everybody wants to be there. And I think if everybody wants to be there, that helps to kind of like breed positivity, which is important to a program, I think.
In everything, there are challenges. What are some of the challenges that each of you program face? There's nothing in life. I don't think there's anything in this life that is without challenges. What are some of the challenges that you would have encountered, Daniel, that might hinder your team overall success or growth?
Well, in my region, the most challenging thing is talent, because my school is one of the, it's not a private school, but it's one of the top grade schools. It's hard to get into Somerset as academics. You usually get in Somerset usually by sports, but to academics, very hard to get in. So, you have good kids, smart kids. It just sometimes we don't have the talent pool to accommodate the sports side of things. So those are the one of the few challenges we have as a group is we don't have, and even if we have two talents, then the sports school would take them away because sports schools they're winning regionals, they're winning districts. We compete. Don't get me wrong, we compete, but once a student is developed, then they would pull him. Like we had a kid who was a football student, and he didn't like track, but I gave him the whole scenario. If you want to get better, you got to do track and football. And he did got better. He was above the 60% rate, got better, and then one of the top football schools took him, so I didn't have him again for this
Why,
semester.
why not?
You know what I mean? So those are the challenges we have in our area is keeping talent once they develop, because the bigger schools would just take them.
Wow, it is funny that Daniel is saying his challenge is talent.
Mhm.
Now, I am thinking that I've heard other programs says training facility,
Mm.
finances, nutrition, hydration,
Mhm.
transportation, all those fancy things. Now, this man, he doesn't have that problem. What are some of your
Yeah.
challenges, David?
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, I think like we face that as well. I mean, I think it's sort of like a relatively expensive small private school. So again, we don't get the talent. Literally right across the road from us, like quarter of a mile away, is Moreton Ranch High School, where a guy called Elijah Hall went, who's the US indoor 200-meter record holder, ran 20.0 indoors for a 200 meters. So, and we've got our high school. I don't even know what it is, like 300 kids or whatever it might be. So that is a challenge for us. We are blessed in terms of that we have a nice all-weather track.
Wow.
A challenge, so which is good. And I think this actually goes back to your point in terms of when, earlier in the interview when Daniel was talking about like the different, the track in different parts of the country. When I lived in Massachusetts, it was noticeable that not all the schools had a track there, but since I've moved down to Texas in Houston, like every school has a track, so they got the facilities. But I think like another challenge is that it's because it's a private school, it's the parental expectation. And I don't mean that they're expecting excellent results, but I think they almost see sports as like a daycare service. So, there might be times where we have, like in Houston, in Texas, like the weather's very up and down. It can be 80 degrees one day, it can be 30 degrees the next day. So you don't really know what you're going to get. But if you have a 30-degree day and it's raining, you're not going to get any beneficial training done outside. There's not going to be anything, especially with the style of program that I run, that I've already said is quite speed focused. We're not going to get anything done. So in that scenario, I would rather switch days around than have them rest. But because of it doesn't suit parents' schedules and like without going into it too much, like the management at the school kind of bend over to the parents, then it makes it very difficult to run a program that is focused on performance as much as it is just we're working to a parental schedule. So that's something that can be quite challenging. One of the facilities that we do lack, and when Daniel said this, I thought exactly the same. We don't have any hills. Houston's very flat as well. So it would be nice to have some hills nearby. But yeah, we don't have access to that.
Wow.
I was speaking to the head coach at Texas A&M about 18 months ago, and for cross country, they went and built a hill. So I feel we don't quite have the funds to build our own hill, but it would be nice to have some hills around here.
Yeah,
So
we can find them.
your challenges are hills. You need some hills to.
I think they're such a great tool. I think that when you speak about strength and conditioning, like I'm not a big weight room guy. I think that I think that it's questionable sort of like how much transfer you get from that. And then, when we're talking about strength conditioning, but I think what Daniel said, for me, I think he was right on the money in terms of the benefit that you can get from using a hill, in terms of that being that you're developing some specific endurance, but also you can use it as for me, like a strength building tool. You do a 20 or 30 meter short sprint as explosively as you can up a hill. That's a great acceleration tool, and you're getting some very specific strength that I think has got a better chance to transfer into a start out of blocks on the track than anything you can do in a weight room.
Exactly.
The natural way.
Yeah.
Certification, coaching certification. Track and field is becoming a rapid business. It is a big deal. More coaches are being drawn to the sport and world athletics certification. Your thoughts, gentlemen? Just your thoughts about the whole thing, that it seems as if the playing field is now becoming a little bit level, where the United States and Jamaica and Great Britain to some extent is no longer dominating sprinting. We're seeing Africa coming into the picture. We're seeing other parts of Europe coming into the picture. Your thoughts on the fact that World Athletics is now certifying coaches all around the world?
I think it's a great idea. I really believe that you should. I try to go to a coaches seminar every summer, every chance I get, because I really believe there's other technologies, there's other advancements. Gatorade do a lot of indoor, I should say, science projects, different ways of recovery, injury recovery. There's different things out there, and I really believe it's like you just don't read one book and stop,
Yeah.
and say, oh, I'm a coach. I really believe you should try to develop yourself every year. I go to coaches clinics, and I act like I don't know anything, and that's my attitude going into coaches clinic. I'm like, hey, I'm a new coach. Help me out here, and I would stay there and take notes, and then retain that information. But definitely, I don't believe the idea that you're a star athlete in college or level or Olympians and say, okay, because I did this, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
coach. I really don't believe that. I believe that you should also have some literature, some paperwork behind your skill set, because just if you want to take if you want to have people take it seriously, I really believe that you should have some certification in the background, because I learned that the hard way when I went to the city and say, hey, I want to coach track and field, and the city said, okay, where's your cert? Like, cert. I guess
Being an athlete wasn't enough.
it was not enough. It was definitely not enough, and I really believe, and I really buy into that now. I really believe that if you're a coach, you should not stop learning, because there's always new development. Shoes companies also get in advance with the whole advanced training. There's so many equipments out there, so many tools out there now, that it's cutting the meat. Stuff you usually do, you could cut it in 1 hour versus 2 hours, based upon technologies and recoveries and equipments. There's so much stuff out there, and I really believe you not extend yourself by getting to the classroom. I really believe you hinder yourself as a coach versus advancements.
Your thoughts, David, and then I'm going to read a comment from one of our from someone in the comment section. Have a question for you guys, but your thoughts on that, David, and then we can go to, and then I'll read that comment.
Yeah. I think that you need to have. I think having some sort of certification, I think that's a good idea, because it gives you some sort of quality assurance, before you start coaching, so that if I meet Daniel and I don't know anything about him, but then he can show me his certificate or tell me about his certificate, then that gives me some sort of reassurance that he knows what he's talking about. And I absolutely second the point that he made in terms of that you want to try and go out and continue to learn and continue to develop. I think that you know, if now you're still doing what you did 10 years ago, then you, like, there's a saying that you sort of like been left behind a bit. So I think it's important to keep, you know, to keep developing and changing bits about, you know, what you do with your program. And I think that, you know, I can't remember if we were recording when I said this, but, you know, one of the things that I do is for the Simply Faster website is I interview sprint coaches from around the world, and I talk about their methods, talk about their approach to it. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to have like success as a sprint coach. But I definitely think that, you know, we should be out there trying to speak to everybody and seeing what it is that we can learn. And I think that, you know, we made that, you made sort of, I know it was in jest, but sort of saying having been an athlete wasn't enough. And I think that, like, it's good to have the knowledge from being an athlete, but I think also it's a different skill set, or it's not the entire skill set, because I think one of the things that you need as a coach is to be able to like make connections with your athletes, and you need to have those soft skills and that personality where you can make connections with people. And I don't think that just because you're an athlete, it means that you have that skill set. So I don't think being a good athlete like guarantees that you're going to be a successful coach. And I would also argue that, you know, potentially one of the things that makes it more difficult having been like an elite athlete is the fact that it might make it less relatable to you, that to somebody that doesn't have talent, because something came so easy for you because you were an elite athlete, and then you've got a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old that can't do something that you perceive as simple. And I can see how that would be challenging to kind of wrap your head around if everything came really easily to you. So yeah, in short, I think I second Daniel's point, keep learning. And I think having some sort of certification, I think that's helpful, because I think it just kind of gives you like a baseline that you know that this person has kind of, they've paid their dues to be called a coach.
Indeed, I totally agree with you both on certification. Things are evolving, and you know, we just have to keep on top of it and keep reminding or refreshing our memory. But let us go to Ozzy Dixon's comment. He's saying, for both coaches, how do you deal with parents who are convinced that their child should be sprinting, but from your own knowledge and experience, you think otherwise? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question, but it's really an easy process, because usually you could only have three athletes on the track for each event. It depends which region you're in, right? And we get it all the time. You know, we always, this is the next Usain Bolt, right? Everybody get it all the time. But when they come to practice and see the performance, and we show them and say, listen, you know, why your kid not run? Because it's not, we cannot put a product on the track that's not our best, right? So we can only do 3 athletes per race. And if you fit that 3 athlete, then good for he or she. But if it's not, then, you know, chances are either the athlete not ready as yet, because like I say, you have late bloomers, you know, so we're not disqualifying that your child is not a fast athlete. It just at this present time,
They're not ready.
they're not fast enough to be in this meet. But we always encourage to continue. And if they're not, we always recommend, you know, club track. You know, I know we have a couple of athletes we cut because at the end of the day, they was not ready, but the mom convinced that he's a sprinter. And we said, well, he's not, you know, you know, and she emphasized, so we said, maybe this program is not for you, you know. So we recommend her to go to the club track that coach after us on the track, and try her luck that way. But usually, like I said, those things that weed themselves out eventually, because the top tier always show up for get ready for the meets.
How you handle a situation like this, David?
I think a little bit like when we were speaking about, you know, the overachiever that maybe thinks they're better than they are. I think that the great thing with track and field, right, is that performances, you know, they're assessed in black and white. So you've got data, you've got times, you've got distances or whatever. So you can, so-and-so thinks that their child should be a sprinter. And then you can show them, well, you know, these are the results from whatever the meet may be that we last did, and this is your child's result. Obviously, you have to be quite diplomatic in terms of how you're gonna present that information to them. But then it's very tough to argue though if you've had a meet that's, you know, a 100-meter race that's been won in 10.7, and then you have your child that's running 12.9. That, okay, like it's very difficult for them to argue that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, and Daniel made this point before as well, in terms of you know, having like creating or having athletes do multiple sports and multiple events, and then, you know, have that child, have that young athlete try a different variety of events. And like, not always. I was a case in point. Like I didn't do what I was naturally better at, but I think most people probably do. So, you know, if they find that they're having more success at the 1500 meters or whatever it might be, or the shot, whatever it might be, then they're naturally going to gravitate towards that. And then you just want to kind of give them the opportunity for their right event to find them. And, you know, you can do that by encouraging a multitude of different things. And, you know, hopefully, you know, the parent will be happy with that, and then the parent will see that their kid's having more success doing that, and then, you know, everyone's happy, because you as the coach, now you've got somebody to fill your shot put roster or whatever it might be as well.
Yeah, indeed. As you said before, you know, you have to be very diplomatic. You can't just say, I'm sorry, your child is not good enough, or your child cannot run, or, you know, you have to be. And I think it is a way to educate the parents about the sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think as well, so, sorry to cut you off, HP. I was going to say that this kind of comes back to my point in terms of that, like, not everybody can be a world-class sprinter. Like when I said that you need to have some sort of genetic predisposition, I mean, this would be an example of that case, right? That not everybody can be the fastest man in the world, because there's lots of people that want to be the fastest man in the world, but there's only one fastest man in the world. So, you know, you can't, and there's a lot more people that want to make the Olympic 100-meter final than the 8 guys that did it in Paris. So not everybody can do it. And that doesn't mean that people shouldn't try to be as fast as they can. But I also think having sort of like a sensible grasp on reality about kind of what your potential and what your limitations might be, I think that's important.
And I'm glad you said that. You touch a very good point, that at the Olympic Games or any global championship in track and field, it is only 8 lanes for the 100 meters. You have close to 200 countries vying for a spot in that final. But at the end of the day, it can only be 8 people. So you just have to stay on top of your game. Yes, sometimes Jamaica will find themselves with 3 in it, America with 3 or 2, and then there are 2 other lanes. And, you know, but as it is now, the rest of the world is stepping up, because the 100 meters at the Olympic Games, Africa was there. Africa was in the party, you know, so the other region just have to stay close. But my next question is, do you think that there are enough resources in terms of information that is centrally located where coaches can go and pull up information on injuries prevention, or nutrition, or when to offload, or that kind of thing? Do you think enough a central database is, based on your research, gentlemen, and trying to educate yourself, is there a lot of resources in terms of information out there?
Can I take this, Daniel, to start with?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I mean, so I think there's enough information. What I don't think we necessarily do a great job of is filtering that information, so we know what the difference between. So there is so much information out there, and then with social media, anybody can write anything. Anybody can write, this is how you should train a 100-meter sprinter. This is what you should do for injuries.
But is that accurate? Is it accurate?
Well, this is my point, right? In terms of how we filter that and how we make sure that people are getting, that they're getting good quality information. And I think we need to. I think, and I've definitely fallen into this category where it becomes very confusing, because you can read 2 different articles and they completely contradict each other. And I think that becomes quite challenging. So I think that, and in the same vein, right, I think that coaches, this is where experience comes in, where, you kind of trust your own judgment. You try things, you see what works with your situation, and then you trust your experience, even if you read something that tells you what you've been doing might be wrong. Now, I'm not saying that you completely disregard that, but you have to have like a critical, you need to read it and think critically before thinking, okay, well, what I've done for the last 10 years that seemed to work, I'm not going to do that anymore because I read this tweet that told me that from some guy I don't know that I should do it this way. So I think that there's potentially almost too much information out there, and I think it's very difficult to filter through it. Sorry, that's why I just wanted to say that, because I think that's something that I've definitely struggled with.
Yeah. Daniel, any thought on that?
Yes, I agree with Coach Maris, Sir David, that the resources out there, what you do with it is based upon your experience. Because I really believe you might, I might get some kickback with this one, right? But I really believe every program is an experimental program. I really don't believe like everybody really go into this program and say, okay, this is a bulletproof thing. I think everybody experimental. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. They go back to the drawing board. So, and like Coach says, based upon your experience, a lot of people. I remember one time this coach came to us and said, "Hey man, I got Carl Lewis program, and we're looking at him like, okay, well, we're supposed to what, pat you on the back, that don't mean anything at all, because that's Carl Lewis program. We hear
That's like 40 years ago. Over 40 years ago.
no, I mean, no, for his credit, Carl Lewis coaches Houston, Texas,
Oh,
the
his
town.
Yep.
coaching program. Okay, okay,
Yeah, he has
okay,
a coaches program.
okay.
So, and I guess he sold his programs, online. So therefore, the resources out there. A lot of coaches are selling their
Mm-hmm.
programs online. But like we were laughing at this coach, and like you took a program from one of the top athletes of the world, and you want to coach high school kids with it. What do you think is going to happen? That's not what it's tailor made for. That program is tailor made for that person, high level um, um, program. So just like Coach said, what you do, how that thing filter down is based upon your experience, because you cannot like you say overload or download. You cannot do that when your program doesn't run that way. you know. But the resources, yeah, there's a lot of resources. There's resources out there how to start a club. There's resources out, you have athlete.net, you have USATF, and you have another group that send you those emails all the time. Once you sign up for one of those groups, they send you from coaches meeting to coaches clinic to what recent research was done. So you have all those stuff available out there. It's just what you do with it. Maybe say experimental factors. What you do with it, it's up to you.
But
Yeah, I just
something.
wanted to add to that. Sorry, can I just say that, I mean, I
Sure.
fully agree with it being experimental. I think that what we do is it's an educated guess, but it's our best guess as what's going to be the right thing to do. And I think that copy and pasting somebody else's program, I mean, if I took what I saw some Jamaican sprinters doing with their climate and I tried to apply it if I was living back in London in December in like a couple of degrees above freezing, it's not going to work. Like, a program is based upon all the context around it, all the situation. And I can see Daniel like smiling and nodding because he knows it. So it's like, it works for your group in your setting. It doesn't mean it's going to work for every group in every setting.
Right. Exactly.
Precisely. I totally agree. And David, you said something earlier that I'm going to go back to when he said there's so much information out there, but what is accurate? Sometimes I go online and I see information and okay, so if you want to lose weight, drink turmeric with ginger and this kind of, and another person saying don't drink turmeric, drink this, and I'm like, all this information, but what is really accurate? And all this information is there, and you're not sure which information to to apply.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's go ahead, Coach David.
So I was just going to say, I mean, what you've just said this. So my day job at the moment is an online health and fitness coach. So what you're talking about there with weight loss, I mean, and it brings me to my point that I was going to say. Sorry, before I jumped in, was just that does it pass like the common sense test, right? So the best weight loss thing is to make sure that you're eating fewer calories than you burn, right? That's the fundamental thing. But I think that everybody wants a quick hack. So then they start drinking turmeric juice. They start doing all these things. And I think the same thing, it can become true in track and field, right? It's like, well, what are some of the principles that the coaches that have had the most success, what are some of the principles they've been following for the last few decades? And then, we apply those principles. And I think that's what's going to get the best results. But everybody wants this, they want to read about this latest workout hack that's going to shortcut them to the results. And in my experience, there's not been a hack out there. And I see a comment there saying stop eating sweets, and that's definitely going to be more beneficial than drinking your turmeric.
Tony Phillips is saying stop eat sweets.
Right. But just to add,
Go
just to
ahead.
add on, just to add on the whole diet thing, we were making fun of it last month. Someone sent a picture in the chat box, the coaching chat box, right? And you have an elephant, a rhinoceros, all these big animals, and all they eat is grass, So what that means.
That is funny. They're
Right.
eating just
Grass.
grass and they're
Right.
fat.
And they're fat. So
Uh,
right. So end of the day, it's really come down to your DNA. I believe
yeah.
most diet, most programs is down to your DNA, because I could eat the same thing you eat and don't lose 1 pound, and you'll be losing pound. You just eating steak alone, and you losing pound. And I eat steak and I'm gaining weight. So I really believe that most diet programs, it depends on your DNA in order for
Let's
it to
hear.
work.
Yeah, let's hear from David now because he's into this kind of thing. How important is diet in track when you're a track and field athlete? Can I eat anything? Can I eat my burger, my Kentucky Fried Chicken, my soda?
We're opening a can of worms here. I mean, I think, right, the most important, the two things where probably diet's going to be important is that you're making sure that your body composition is all right. So, I mean, there's not very many fat elite sprinters out there, right? So you want to make sure that your body weight is going to allow you to perform well. And then the other thing is to make sure that you're fueled for your workouts and you're recovered from your workouts. So, I mean, I would say that you want to make sure that in order to make sure that your body composition is right, you want to make sure that you're eating like an appropriate number of calories for you as an athlete. And then the other thing that you probably want to be doing is making sure that you're having, especially if like something like lifting is a big part of your program, something that's going to cause like microscopic damage to the muscle tissue. You want to make sure that you're having plenty of protein. And then you're probably having plenty of carbohydrates because you're doing high intensity training. So you probably want to make sure that you're doing those things. And then kind of in addition to other things that, generally help with health. So like from your fruits and vegetables to get your vitamins and minerals. Now, I don't think that means that you can never have some KFC or you can never have chocolate cake. But I don't think it should be, I don't think you're going to be performing optimally if that's the foundation of your diet.
There's something that I've observed, coaches, and maybe I don't know if you guys can explain it, but I noticed that sprinters tend to have more body mass than middle and long distance athletes. I've looked at the 800 runners, the 1500, 5000, and they're so skinny. But when you look at sprinters, they tend to have more body mass. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, the reason for it is it's called a type 2 muscle group, and really and truly, people don't understand muscle do suck oxygen. It's not something usually when especially the middle distance group, if they have too many muscles is not good for them, going long distance. However, for the sprinting side of that, you want to develop these twitching muscles they call the type 2 muscles. So you want to develop those muscles, and in order to do so, there comes the strength training and also the speed working. So because of that combination, you develop these big muscle mass because you need that to go down the track at a fast pace. However, too many muscles can be also not good for you because muscles suck up oxygen, you know, so you don't want that. So you're not going to get a muscle middle distance runner because it's just not going to happen because end of the day is his level is not going to, how I should put it, get him over the two
So,
miles, 3 miles.
so if I'm a track and field athlete and I'm skinny no, I don't have a lot of body mass. I must not even think about sprinting, right? I should just go straight
No, no,
to.
no, 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 no,
No,
no.
not
I don't
no,
agree
not
with that.
really.
I don't think.
Yeah,
I
not
don't
really.
think.
But,
No, I don't think that means because we can find like skinny sprinters that have been very successful, like Kim Collins. He was tiny.
True,
So
true.
I mean, I think that when you say like yes, there's a trend that the average sprinter is going to be heavier than or have like a higher BMI than the average distance runner for some of the reasons that Daniel mentioned there. But I don't think it means that you can't sprint if you're skinny. And I would also say as well that I don't think being skinny and then thinking that you need to put on muscle mass, chasing heavier weight in order to run quicker. I don't think you should be trying to put weight on because ultimately, like that's weight you've got to carry down the track, right? And the more weight you've got to carry down the track, the harder that's going to be. I tend to look at it that like muscle mass is in sprinters tends to be more developed as a byproduct of their training rather than it being a training goal in and of itself, if that makes sense.
Wow,
right.
interesting. David, tell us a little bit more about your outside of coaching, what you do. You said you're into nutrition, I think fitness. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, so I work for a company called Superhuman, and honestly, they've been great. But so essentially, we get, it's largely general population, typically like entrepreneurs, people that own their own business, very, very busy people. Quite often that they travel, and in-person personal training isn't sort of like a viable solution for them. So they come to us, and then we set them up with like workout programs, nutrition targets, and then kind of like daily habits to kind of help them guide them in the direction of the goals that they want. So, it might be that if they come and primarily like the first thing that they say that they want to do is they want to lose weight, right? They want to lose body fat, right? So, typically we'll set them a caloric target that's going to put them in a calorie deficit, and then we'll give them we'll give them some suggestions of foods that will hit that target for them, typically like high protein foods. So, so like lean meats or Greek yogurt or something like that. But, we work within their preferences and what they do eat. And then we might give them a step target to ensure that they're getting enough movement throughout the day to help burn calories as well. And then in addition, we'll give them like a resistance training program so that the muscle that they do have, they're not losing. So basically it's signaling to the body to maintain their muscle mass that they do have so that we can essentially like preferentially target the mass that's being lost is going to come from fat. So yeah, that's a little bit about that, but it's it's something that I really enjoy doing and quite
So you're
passionate
saying
about it. So.
if you don't use your muscles, you lose them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're not eating enough food to maintain your body weight. Then yeah, there's that old saying, use it or lose it, right? So
yeah.
And that's and I think that's one of the ways that we can definitely sort of like attenuate kind of the aging process is by making sure that we are putting our muscular system under stress and making sure that it has the nutrients that it needs. And that allows us to keep using our muscular system and keep us healthy as we get older.
Indeed. Coaches, It was a pleasure having you guys here. But before we go, we're going to do two things. I just want to ask if there are any other vital information that you have that I did not ask you about that you would like to pass on to other coaches, especially new upcoming coaches in the business. Daniel, you can go first. Just a
I
word
mean,
of encouragement or
yeah,
something.
right. I mean, the main thing I could advise most coaches is try to surround yourself with people like-minded like yourself, you know. So for example, you cannot make it, you could pass on that information and know that it would trickle down to the students, right? Second thing I would suggest they do, I know it's tough, I know it's hard, but your program only goes so far based upon your finances for that program. So you could have all the good athletes in the world, but if you don't have the finance and the stability to back them up, then you could only go so far. So I suggest that they have a marketing tool, marketing idea, marketing strategy, marketing. My school, we haven't started the season yet, and we just did our third fundraiser yesterday, right? Because we want to travel outside the state this year, right? And we know we need the funds. So the season started in February, and yesterday we had a third fundraiser, right? So I'm saying to you, your program goes as far as it can go based upon your finance. So and if you want to go far, marketing, try to find ways to get funds into your program, and it goes a long way. Um,
Indeed.
yeah,
Indeed. You have to help me with some of that fundraising ideas. David, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I would say similar to Daniel's first point, right? So find people that you want to learn from and find a way to approach them, right? Everybody's on, everybody's got a social media handle, so reach out and learn from people that have had success, find out what they're doing. And then I think the second thing that I would say is look at the event and look what the event requires, and then figure out from that, like, what you're going to do to prepare the athletes for that event. So I mean, if your event is the 60 meters, having the athletes do a mile time trial, is how relevant is that, for example? So I would say look at the demands of the event and use that to build your training plan.
With that said, we are going to play a little game now, and the game is going to be, David, you are going to name Jamaican athletes, and Daniel is going to name athletes from the UK. So I don't know, it might be a little easier for David because we have so many athletes, but let us see how it will go. David, you will name Jamaican, and Daniel will name. I think what I'm going to do, because you're UK/US, Daniel will name athletes from the UK and from the United States, while you will name a Jamaican athlete. So I'll tell you guys when to go. But before we
He's
start,
Jamaica/US as well. Can I mention US athletes as well? He's been in the US longer than me.
no, no, but we have a lot of
I'm joking.
yeah, we have a lot of Jamaican athletes. I think it might be easier for you, but let's see. But before we go, I just want to thank everyone who have been here hanging out with us. All the Jamaican Olympians who turn out. Tony Phillips, Carrion Phillips, DJ Rudy, for being here. Thank you all for hanging out with us. So now we're going to play a game. And guys, in the comments, you can help them. So David, you will start.
So I just need to name any
So
Jamaican
you just
athlete.
need to name one athlete from Jamaica, then Daniel will name an athlete from the UK or US. Then you will go, and the first person who cannot name
Right.
a
Okay.
person, the first person that gets a wrong answer is technically the
Right.
loser.
This could go on for a while then.
Yeah, and
Okay.
let's see how long it can go on for. So
Okay.
David, let's go.
All
You
right.
start,
Well,
David.
Usain Bolt. He's Googling.
Daniel, Google it.
No. Live for Christy. Okay, I live for Christy.
Okay, he said
Asafa
Linford.
Powell.
That's it. I don't know.
Daniel,
Live
it's
for
your time.
Christy.
He said Linford. He said Asafa Powell. No,
Um,
you can name from the US in a Daniel. You can name from
Ash.
UK or US.
Oh, I could name from US.
Yeah,
Okay, I
because
try to keep it UK though.
you try
Ashley,
to keep.
yeah, Ash.
Well, if you're trying to keep it UK, continue.
Oh, Ash. What's Ash?
Dina Asher Smith.
Dina Smith. Miss Smith. Yeah.
You're right. Okay.
Okay, Shelly Ann Fraser Price.
All right. I'm back in the US. Gabby Thomas.
Okay, Sharika Jackson.
No man, guys. This needs no. Come on. This
Yeah.
needs to be flowing. There's so many
I
athletes.
know. I'm like exhausted.
I would play against David, but it would go on all
yeah,
night.
yeah, I know.
So, so
I
Daniel,
give, I give, I give, I give Coach the winning.
yeah, Daniel, yeah, coach get the win because from the UK you have people like Linford Christie, you have Mofara, you have Dina
Yeah.
Asher Smith, you have what's his name, Chambers, you have
Glenn Chambers,
yes,
Darren
you have so
Campbell,
yeah,
Zarnell Hughes. He trains in Jamaica.
Daniel
Zarnell Hughes.
Daniel Hughes, what's
Yeah,
her name,
Far.
Asher
What's his
Smith,
name? What's it Far? Is it Far?
Mofara,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mo
Far.
Farah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Far.
there are so
Yeah.
many of
Yeah.
them. But that was good. But gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. And David, I need to thank you for responding to my message when I reached out to you on Instagram. You did not
That's my
hesitate
pleasure.
to connect, and I like that. And we have to take you to champs. You need to experience
Hey, I'd love to.
champs.
I'd love it. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds
It
good.
is
I'll be
a
there.
good
I'm gonna hold
vibe.
you to that.
Yes, it is a good vibe, and it is like a mini vacation because it runs for 5 days.
Okay.
So it runs
Yeah,
from
that sounds fun.
Tuesday to Saturday. It is a good vibe, and it's
Okay.
all about the Jamaican high schools and the juniors, and they delivered. And most, if not all, of our international athletes have passed through
Yeah.
champs. Whether they win at champs or not, they have gone through the system. Shelly and Fraser Price did not win at champs, but look at her today. Asafa
Yeah.
Powell did not win at champs,
Mm.
and so, but they've all gone through the system.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is Canada.
You're right.
Somebody
Was
is
it? Was
coming.
it? Was he not born in? Was he not born in Jamaica? Was he? He was born
Yeah,
somewhere
he's
else.
Jamaican. He's Jamaican.
So
Trelawney.
Linford Christie was born in Jamaica as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. But you know what is
Right.
so funny about that commentary? I was a little girl in 1988 when he won. And when he won, they said Canadian Ben Johnson won the 100 meter. And after he was stripped, that was when we knew that he was Jamaican.
Right.
Right.
Oh, interesting. Right.
After
Okay.
he was stripped, the narrative, the storyline changed. Born
I'm
Jamaican.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's a
Ben
shame,
Johnson
but yeah.
is Ben Johnson. Somebody said Donald Quarry, Gail Divas, Usain Bolt, Carl Lewis. My
Yeah, I
fan.
mean it's a big pool. It's a
Yeah,
big
it is.
pool. I mean
It
it's a
is.
huge pool. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if you could pull up the Olympics and
Yeah.
all that stuff involved, but
Yeah, it
I
is.
know,
Someone saying Marlene Ati. But
right,
gentlemen,
Coach.
this year is another year of track and field, global track and field. The World Championships will be in Tokyo in the Olympic Stadium. Any ideas? What are you expecting this season from the top athletes? I mean, we've had some new people now coming to the party. There is let's see, Tibogo from Botswana. He's now in the party.
I'd like to see Kashane Thompson step up, man. I thought Kashane Thompson, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, and like this is out of respect to his talent. I almost thought he lost the Olympic final rather than Noah Lyles won it, if that makes it. I think he made sort of a mistake in the last towards the end of the race, and that's not me telling
Mm-hmm.
Shane Thompson what he should do, but I just think he had that level of talent, and I think he could have should have won it kind of thing. And I think that he's gonna. I'd like to see him sort of like build on that, and then
Yeah.
go to Tokyo and kind of get that gold.
Yeah. I think he's going to redeem himself this season. I mean,
Very exciting talent.
we have Jillian Alfred, who is also in the mix, went to school in Jamaica. She competed at
Mm.
Champs. Yeah,
Yeah.
she went to high school in Jamaica, competed at Champs also. So we have so
All
many
right.
young talents coming forward now. Of course, and we're talking about the sprints, we still have Shelly and Fraser Price, who I think is going for another season. Elaine is trying to make her way back. Shawnee Miller Weibo is trying to make her way back after injuries last season.
And don't
Um,
forget the twins. Don't forget the twins, Tia.
The
Yeah.
twins from out of
Clayton's.
Jamaica is coming. Of course,
Mm.
America is letting us know that their ladies are back in the sprinting with Shakari, Jefferson, and TT Terry. They're very much in the mix to, of course, challenge Jamaica and the rest of the world. Marie
Mhm.
Jose Talu is still at the party. Van Niekerk trying to come back from injuries. So there are so many athletes people are changing clubs because they want to get better at their game because they realize that the bar every year the bar is getting a little higher and higher, and of course athletes are doing what they need to do in order to be ready for that. So I'm looking forward to the season myself. So gentlemen, before we go, your last thoughts and then we wrap it up. Any last thoughts? If there's none,
Yeah,
it's
I
fine.
just think it's been. I just think it's been.
okay.
Yeah, it's been an
Oh,
enjoyable conversation. I think we've covered a lot, and yeah, it was. I mean, it was great to hear like Daniel's perspective. Coming from being a Jamaican teenage superstar to obviously now going through the US collegiate system and now coaching in the US and hearing some of his experience. So I enjoyed it.
indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that. And normally, before I go, I would give my guest an opportunity to ask me one question. So, because David is a newbie to the show, I'm going to give David an opportunity to ask me one question, and then we will wrap up. Of course, before David go, Carrie Ann is saying she came first in one grade. Stephen is saying, what's the lady's name who ran with the long nails? Okay, we're talking about that's Florence Griffiths Joyner, the late Flojo. Right, somebody's asking about Flojo and stuff. So before we wrap it up for real this time, David is going to ask me one question and then we are going to say adios.
Oh, you put me on the spot here. If you could, if you could sit down and have, if you could sit down and have a meal, or have a conversation with any Jamaican track and field athlete, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one because
There
this
you go.
program,
You gave me a tough thing to come up with a question.
yes,
I gave you
I
a tough
know.
question back.
Yeah, this program, a big part of it is talking to the Jamaican athletes, hearing their story and
Mhm.
sharing it with the world. And if I get an opportunity tomorrow to sit down with an
Mhm.
athlete tomorrow, it
Mhm.
would be Merlene Joyce Otti. And
Okay.
I'll tell you why it's Merlene Otti. She is a 7-time Olympian. She has been to
Mhm.
7 Olympic Games. The only person in the history of the Olympic Games in track and
Is that
field.
right? Okay.
7 times. 6 times for Jamaica and 1 time for Slovenia. So if
Slovenia.
I was to sit down with an athlete tomorrow, I would want to talk to Marlene Otti. Marlene Otti.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have that conversation, let me join in because I'd like to talk to her too. So yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to talk to her. And if
Yeah.
there's anyone out there who can reach Marlene Otti page, please tell her that I need to talk to her. I'd love to hear about her journey. Her first Olympic Games, 1980, and she went all the way up from 1980 to 2004. So yeah,
Longevity,
but
longevity.
I'm all about the Jamaican athletes talk, and I've had conversation with a lot of them so far, and hopefully this season I can continue that trend.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a
Excellent.
good
Yeah.
one.
Yes, sir. So everyone, thank you very much for being here. I'm your girl HP, and of course, tonight it is all about the coaches' corner, hearing their stories, how they run their program, the challenges that they faced, and it was good. The insight was good. Of course, Daniel England, a Jamaican living in the United States, and David. You know, when I saw David's name at the first time, I was like, how do I pronounce this name? But it's David Maris. Yes,
Yeah, like
Maris.
Paris, but with an M. Rhymes with
Maris.
Paris. That's how
In
I remember it.
Jamaica, we would say we have the name Morris, which is Morris, but it's David
Ah, right.
Maris.
Yeah.
David is from the UK. Of course, Jamaica is a part of the British. We're a part of the British. So we
You
are
dab on the left.
family. Yes, we're family. We're family. So, guys, thank you very much for being here. Rymar's Track Club, who is doing a great thing in St. Mary. Thank you for being here. Stephen DJ Rudy, thank you very much. All the Olympians that roll out. Someone is saying, Lynn Jennings, Alistair Felix, Jackie Joyner Kersey. Man, they are rolling out the names. They're
I
rolling.
know it's easy. It's easy.
It's very easy. It's very easy. But gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. And everyone, thank you. Thank you again. And join me next week when we will do it all over again. Thank you for being here. Peace. Peace. Oh, the peace sign. Oh, peace. Have a good one. Have a good one. Have a good one. Thank you.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple, to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica. One people, one legacy.